West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
The first reading is from the author of the groundbreaking book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This by the poet, playwright, and civil rights activist, Maya Angelou. During bad circumstances, which is the human inheritance, you must decide not to be reduced. You have your humanity, and you must not allow anything to reduce that. We are obliged to know we are global citizens. Disasters remind us that we are world citizens, whether we like it or not. Brian Stevenson is an American lawyer, social justice advocate, law professor at New York University School of Law, and founder of and director of the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama. He has challenged the criminal justice system for its bias against the poor and minorities, especially children, helping achieve Supreme Court decisions prohibiting the sentencing of children under age 18 to death or life imprisonment without parole. The American Philosophical Society has named him a drum major for justice and mercy. And here's something of what he said. Sometimes we're fractured by the choices we make. Sometimes we're shattered by things we would never have chosen. But our brokenness is also the source of our common humanity. Our shared vulnerability and imperfection nurtures and sustains our capacity for compassion. And the third reading comes from French-Polish scientist, a pioneer in the search on radioactivity, the first woman to win a Nobel Prize and to win one in two separate fields, and who developed mobile radiography units for delivery to field hospitals during the war. The physicist and chemist Marie Curie. You cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement and at the same time share a general responsibility for all humanity. Our particular duty being to aid those to whom we think we can be most useful. And so these readings are offered as wisdom for the journey. May we walk in its light.
Thank you, Don. Wrote that song for a conference at which Greta was a keynote speaker in Melbourne, Australia, which brings me to the next sentence I was going to start with, which I hadn't connected until I was playing that song, which is that when we talk about Easter and the season of spring, we think of it as including everyone, and we try very hard at West Hill to make sure our wording includes everyone, doesn't exclude anyone. But our signs of Easter and spring are not the ones that Australia is experiencing now, because they are not heading into spring, they are heading into fall and winter. So there's that idea of our idea of a season, our idea of the Christmas season, or the festivals that we have are very different depending on where we live. But here I think most of us are north of the equator. In this hemisphere, Easter is a time of new growth, actually, our tulips and things we thought were a little premature. They were heading up there before the big snowfall, and we hoped they survived, and they did. There's many traditions surrounding this holiday time. The egg. Now, I never knew the connection. When I was very small, I thought that some types of rabbits. Oh, you did too. Honestly thought that some types of bunnies laid eggs, or else why would they have anything to do with eggs except maybe breaking them and eating them? I didn't know. But the idea of the Easter egg comes from festivals long before Christianity picked that up. It was a pagan spring festival that celebrated the new life, which was life cracking open from eggs. And the actual Easter bunny is a folklore tradition from Germany. And settlers brought that tradition to America in the 1700s, and the children would make little nests so the creature could lay its eggs, whoever the egg layer was, and the custom spread. And it also is the same time as the Pesach, the Jewish festival of Passover. So there's much going on at this season, whether you're religious or non-religious. A common theme is new life in nature. And our first PowerPoint there is just a very simple picture of our springtime look here. I think John and Ann were telling us that this was happening in their world a month ago, at least a month ago. But the idea of the start of spring, the new life, the burgeoning, just hopeful green life that comes out of the brown earth or even sometimes out of the snow, it brings along with it, if you wish, the idea of new life, of new hope, of something beginning that wasn't there before, or something that was beginning to rumble in your life, and it came to fruition in that new life. And so hope and life. We're going to look at new life in a different sort of perspective today. We're going to look at some statements where new life came where it wasn't before, only because people took responsibility for it, only because somebody took a verb and made it come to life in an action for a problem. And we'll take a look at that from a point of view of some document I had never even heard of until I dug in and did this research. But I'm celebrating it, and I'm inviting you to celebrate that it exists, but celebrate more by the end. I'll have two delightful little videos to show you of people taking responsibility to protect and promote and support other people's rights. Taking the responsibility to promote and support and protect other people's rights. We're going to see those movies as we end. And then at the very end, we'll be back to spring with that new life. And we've asked Babette to sing a song she has resurrected from years ago, and we'll present that as our ending. So, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Kevin Jackson pronounced them with fervor from the frontier, and we all responded yes to that. And the Declaration of Human Rights was the first time the world got together, 100 countries, if you remember, we talked about that. 100 countries got together after World War II and said, no more of this. We cannot be ravaging our population, our young people like this, because some people make a decision that they want their people to live here or there or whatever. And so let's put a stop to that. And they came up with the Declaration of Human Rights, which started off saying that all people, and many of us like to expand that to all life, but all people in this document have the right to live with dignity and a sense of worth because other people are respecting their rights. And they protected that idea with the Universal Bill of Human Rights. Didn't exist before in that worldwide sense. However, 50 years after that declaration in 1948, another groundbreaking document had to be written because we weren't doing so well with all those rights. There were many, many, many hundreds and thousands and millions of people who were not experiencing the respect due to each human being that was laid out in that document. And so they got together again, and they commemorated it in that 50 years with a document that stated, if we've got these rights and we think other people have the rights, then by George, we've got a responsibility to act on them, to protect them, to do something about it. So with a shared concern, and given that millions were ignoring this, they came out with this. It was the UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and the Office of the United Nations put together what is on the right, on your screen there, the Declaration of Human Duties and Responsibilities. It was proclaimed in 1998 in the city of Valencia in Italy. So it's also called the Valencia Declaration. And I'm going to ask you to leave that slide on. Every single responsibility they have coupled with a right. So these rights we declare everyone has, there's a cost to them. There's a burden that goes with them. We need a verb for every noun that's in one of those rights. We need the verbs. And I'm going to just walk us through some of those articles that they put down. And I'm inviting you to listen for the verb, listen for the action word in this, and then listen to where that verb, that action word, is coupled with a problem. And the problem is there because in the first document, there was the declaration everyone had the right to be treated like that, but it wasn't always happening. So this next document takes those rights and translates them into action by saying, take a verb, which means we had to do something, and attach it to a problem. That's where we need to focus our energy, our time, our commitment, our money, our vote, our support. And here are the articles. So they're our responsibilities if we say people have these rights. If we don't take responsibility, it gets a little embarrassing telling people they have these rights, but we're not involved in helping protect them. So, in the first article in this declaration, they defined what duty means. And they said that duty was an ethical or moral obligation. Now, this isn't law, so nobody's going to arrest you for not doing it. But a moral obligation is what's inside you. It says, this is right. This is right. It is not right that people do not have those rights. So duty means an ethical or moral obligation to do something, to come up with a verb that's going to be attached to an issue. And the word responsibility, now in this document, the word responsibility, they're saying they want to make it legally binding. But not all the world agreed with that. So they also included that it's an individual choice to take the responsibility to do this. So, can this go higher? Much better. I'm very tall and I need things very, okay. Article 1. There's definitions. That starts with Article 3. Every human being has the duty and responsibility to protect the life of every member of the human family and ensure the survival of both present and future generations. And they made a definition. That means to take reasonable steps to help other people whose lives are threatened or who are in extreme distress or need. Article 4. The duty and responsibility to promote security and a culture of peace for everyone. Article 5. To promote rapid and effective disarmament in the interests of peace. To carry out nuclear disarmament. to cease any production or use of all chemical and biological weapons, and the use of landmines. Every word that's in there is because it wasn't happening. Every word is a need that's expressed. Article 6, the duty to intervene to prevent gross human rights violations. Is it not tragically sad that that has to be added? That we have a duty to intervene to prevent gross human rights violations. The commission of genocide, this gets very current, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and other systematic human rights and abuses. Article 8, the duty and the responsibility of humanitarian assistance and intervention to those in need, again, so current. In a world with millions of displaced people, and this was 1998, it is claimed for the adequate provision of food, basic shelter, health care, and other essential requirements for the survival to ensure the right to life for everyone in the world, especially children. Article 9, the duty and the responsibility to protect and promote a safe and stable, healthy environment for all forms of life, which requires us to use our resources adequately to avoid exploitation and consumption, and to research and exchange information. There's a little extra statement in this one. This duty for the present and future generations has already been confirmed by a broad scientific consensus on the existence of climate change and human responsibility, and that was 1998. Article 15, duty and responsibility to eradicate corruption and build an ethical society. The rights to free assembly and free association. Article 23, and this has to still be here, emphasizes the duty and responsibility to prohibit and prevent slavery and slave-like institutions and slave-like practices, including, and again, every word here is such a pit, a crevice of need, including child prostitution, child exploitation, enforced prostitution, debt bondage, serfdom, and other forces of other instances of enforced labor. I may have told you this 2 weeks ago, but at the Whitby Library, I was doing some studying in there, and on all the bookshelves were notices to say, beware of child trafficking in Durham, in the region of Durham. And I almost thought someone had put that up, but evidently it was quite right and quite important to put there. So that this is still here is what they're aiming at. Another one, your heart crunches to think this would have to be said. Article 24 says that we have a duty and responsibility to condemn torture and to take all necessary measures to prevent torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment and punishment. Article 27, to respect and ensure equality of every member of the human family before the law, but also with each other. Article 28, equality of race, religion, and ethnicity, and diversity. And many articles just go on hammering at the different peoples, the different kinds of people that shouldn't be different kinds of people, but we are. Equality of sex and gender equality, race, religion, ethnicity, recognition of women's rights as human rights, the enjoyment of all human rights for all people and all fundamental freedoms, the equality of people with disabilities, the equality of minorities, whether that's national, ethnic, religious, and I was surprised when there's a good one, linguistic, if you're in a linguistic minority. Duty and responsibility to protect the rights of indigenous people, the rights of the child, the rights of the elderly, the rights to justly remunerated work, and a quality and adequate standard of life for all. And they end as they ended the Declaration of Human Rights, with the right to education, with a qualification, taking into account that illiteracy still affects millions of people in the developing countries. So the summary of that, the Declaration of Human Rights put into action with the Declaration of Human Duties and Responsibilities to one another. And all it really is the responsibility to care for one another, that one another matters, that someone I will never meet in my whole life, I will never even hear of it, might have been one piece of a statistic in some news release that I glance at, but that all people have these rights. Therefore, the job of humanity is to continue to protect and promote. So the verb to protect and promote, whatever that verb was, is attached to a problem. And that's the action for good. A verb for a problem, action for good. A verb for a problem, action for good. So many voices have called us to this kind of responsibility, because some people will say, we aren't our brother's keeper. You've heard this, I'm not my brother's keeper. And then you hear other people say, we are our brother's keeper. Well, a really good caveat with that was stated by Franz Kafka, the Bohemian novelist and writer. And he said, well, we can't be exclusively our brother's keeper, or we won't be taking responsibility for our own physical and social well-being. So I like that he wraps that all together and says it's not exclusively the other. Some of you were raised in groups that said all that matters is the others. You just serve others with your whole life to the neglect of yourself. And so we try to always emphasize, when we say justice and compassion for all, that means we have to look in the mirror and treat ourselves with respect and with compassion and with challenge and with forgiveness and with comfort for self. So Franz Kafka agreed. Well-known voices. I'll tell you the person, and then I'll tell you what he said. Bob Dylan, if you don't know, is singer, songwriter, and activist, says a hero is someone who understands the responsibility that comes with his freedom. A hero is someone who understands his responsibility that comes with the freedom. The Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he's the one that said the line between good and evil does not occur out there. It occurs right down the center of all of us, the choice between good and evil. He helped to raise global awareness, especially with the Gulag prison system. He worked very hard with that. And he said, it is time in the West to defend not so much human rights as human obligation. The Dalai Lama, today more than ever, life must be characterized by a sense of universal responsibility, not only nation to nation and human to human, but also to other forms of life. Coretta Scott King, now that you'll know that is the wife of Martin Luther King Jr. And I was delightedly surprised that she said this. And it's my fault that I was surprised, and I cherish that she said this. Coretta Scott King, and this was after Martin Luther King died. She said, I believe all Americans who believe in freedom, tolerance, and human rights have a responsibility to oppose bigotry and prejudice based on sexual orientation. I was surprised. And I'm sorry that I was surprised, because I hadn't read enough about her that she moved on that issue. We have a friend, actually the friend is the son of an evangelical speaker, and I'll keep that the name out of it, there's so many. His son became an atheist, and he still came as an evangelical teacher, preacher, speaker everywhere, very, very effervescent speaker. His wife did a lot of research on issues of sexual orientation and sexual gender orientation, and being deeply, deeply devoted evangelical Christian, she just kept learning. She put a verb put a verb at a problem and kept learning. And she finally said to her husband, who's known all over the States as an evangelical speaker with a very clear stand against homosexual, that would be the word they would have used, any gay, any sexual orientation that's not the traditional. And she said to him, we can't do this. We can't discriminate. We cannot leave out that many people because of a verse or two. And so she just kept going at her husband. Not that I know any wives anywhere that keep going at their spouse with issues or something, but she kept going. And finally he decided, I can't do it either. I cannot speak out against something when my heart now sees it differently. And so he went public with this and lost 22 speaking engagements within a week. They cut him off, and he hardly speaks anywhere anymore, but he felt that was worth it to say, I'd rather not leave out people that have no reason for us to leave out than go on speaking of this. We take our hat off to that. Viktor Frankl, who was the Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, he wrote The Meaning of Life, the man's search for meaning. That's what he wrote. If you have a pause in your Easter celebrations, go read Viktor Frankl's The Man's Search for Meaning, and pretend he's saying humans search for meaning when he does that. But he based that book on his experiences in the Nazi concentration camps. And he said this, and when it's someone that has suffered like that, you just quietly, reverently listen to him. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each person is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. One of the funniest writers, in my opinion. I laugh, even if I've read his cartoons 7 times over. His name is Doug Larson, and he created the comic series The Far Side. If you need a chuckle, open Doug Larson. Of course, you may not find it funny, because there's other ones that are very famously funny, and I don't laugh, but I laugh at Doug Larson. And he said, the reason people blame things on the previous generation, is that there is only one other choice. So they opt to do the blame. I like that. And then there's folks I wrote down, I'd never heard of them, but I loved what they said about responsibility, about taking a verb and aiming it at a problem and saying, if we have that right and we're saying everyone has it, then let's do something about that. His name is Tom McCall, and he said, I think this was put in the quotes at the beginning, heroes are not giant statues framed against a red sky. They are people who say, this is my community, and so it's my responsibility to make it better. I like that. That's hero. Václav Havel said, the salvation of this human world lies nowhere else than in the human heart, in the human power to reflect, in human meekness and human responsibility. And lastly, for these people I did not know, his name is Gary Snyder, and I put this on my bulletin board. Find your place on the planet, dig in, and take responsibility from there. Find your place on the planet, dig in, and take responsibility from there. So, good words. What are the kind of things people can do? And I'm going to ask for the next slide. People using verbs to do good. And the first one, and I didn't know much about this one, is called Right for Rights. You get the Right for Rights. The Amnesty International has this program, a letter-writing campaign that's been held for 20 years. It began in Poland with a group of friends who marked Human Rights Day with a 24-hour letter-writing marathon. Every December, people write letters, emails, postcards, tweets, and Facebook posts in support of not human rights, of human rights defenders, to encourage and support them. And they write and they say, good for you, how can I help? So, Right for Rights. People also, in the next slide, I believe, people also do protests and strikes and saying no more of this. In 1975, 90% of the women in Iceland went on strike to prove their importance to society. Was that not sad? That they had to go on strike to prove their importance to society. Factories and banks and stores and schools had to close, of course, because women were running them. Women also took the day off from domestic work at home. So men had to take care of children while women rallied in the streets. 5 years later, Vigdis Finnbogadottir became Europe's first female president and the first woman in the world to be democratically elected as a head of state. Jolly good for her. And I love the picture of the disaster if all women went on strike. And there are also sit-ins. You maybe have been in a sit-in. I don't just mean sitting down thinking about rights, but I mean a protest sort of sit-in. But I didn't know, and I thought I should have, because I believe this was in the news, but I didn't give it a title. Die-ins. Die-ins. Die-ins simulate death, so participants lie on the ground. During the summer of 2020, this is where I should have noticed this, many protests surrounding the murder of George Floyd hosted die-ins. People lay on the ground for precisely 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is how long initial reports said that the police officer knelt on Floyd's neck. So a die-in, pretending that you're dead for that amount of time. And there's vigils, and you've seen those things where as the sun sets, after some difficult and horrific loss or death, to honor it, people start lighting the candles. Sometimes in college and in great big amphitheaters, they'll put their little cell phone lights on to say, we're with this issue. This needs to have attention paid to it. So I ask, in those two ideas, writing and protesting, what new problem can I enter with a verb, instead of just reading it, with a verb and say, I will bring some sort of new life to that situation. Small, large, medium, new, faulty, whatever. But what can I bring to plant or to let a little, sometimes new life out there even needs some assistance. It certainly needs sun and rain and that sort of thing. What can I nurture? What can I show up for? What verb can I bring? The next slide is, it's already there. That is street art protests. Have you ever been, and I don't mean just general graffiti, but street art that's been put up there for an issue. And there's several issues on that one, Indigenous and Black and war and rights. And so what artist can we support? Who is trying to do a good job? And who can we put a verb to and make a difference with that? I would like to show you two brief movies, and they're both children who are making a difference in a way that the first one, I wasn't expecting to see this at all this way. If you can start that first video, I'll just get it ready to go. It's about human rights and how we could take responsibility for letting people know that it means them. So the first video.
Good morning. I'm here to read you your rights.
My what?
We are all free and equal. Don't discriminate. You have the right to life.
You have the right to life and to live in freedom and safety.
You have a right to education. You have a right to your own things.
You have the right to social security. You have the right to play.
You have the right to democracy. You have the right to asylum.
You have the right to take responsibility.
And no one
and nobody can take these rights and freedoms away from you.
Why are you doing this?
You have a right to know.
Why are you doing this? You have the right to know. Now, that was done in a pretty, it sounds like a North American city, but we should, that to knock on doors everywhere. There is a movement in India where men take to bicycles. I think we bumped into that with the he for she movement, where they're riding their bicycles into every village, every outlying area to say, you have these rights, because the word is universal, because the word universal means everyone, and to wake up to that idea. Well, wait a minute, we're not being treated like that. Where's the verb? What verb do we use? The second movie is a little drama. And when I was first watching it, I thought, okay, this is nice. And then as it went on, I thought, and then I at the end, I wanted you to see it. Otherwise, I was just going to watch it at home, but I want you to see this, particularly the ending. It's put together very well, and it's people, again, who take responsibility to protect or to support someone's right to freedom, to safety, to education, to food, to liberty, to religion, to all these things. So, the second clip.
TED, the world will be a better place, you know? As it pulls from my pen, pain pulls from my heart. Knowing there's kids somewhere that actually starve. Take the time out, close your eyes, just picture this. No color, no hate, nemesis or differences. TV is filling me with scenes of negativity, but we can control it if we cooperate willingly. We came a long way, but got so much further to go. Guns kill, but hatred destroys us the most. And the problem could never be solved, you see. Human rights define the word equality. If we don't respect and love each other, we're just living a lie. Because united starts with you and I, you feel me? You and I, T-E-D, a better place this world would be. We're all in this game, can't you see? We're all a part of this family tree. You and I, T-E-D, a better place this world would be. We're all in this game, can't you see? We're all a part of this family tree. We all are born free and equal, free to walk and free to talk, free to dance, free to jump and free to prance. And what I'm saying, gotta keep it together, no matter how bad the weather. It will be alright, keep it tight, cause we all got our freedom rights every day, from the night to the broad daylight. Don't discriminate, learn to appreciate, so you don't have to imitate. Don't be the one to hate, it's never too late. You got the right to life, innocent to proven guilty. You can say what you like, gotta get the education. Don't throw it away, know your human rights, cause it can help you someday. You and I, T-E-D, a better place this world would be. We're all in this game, can't you see? We're all a part of this family tree. You and I, T-E-D, a better place this world would be. We're all in this game, can't you see? We're all a part of this family tree.
Oh, the idea being all together we can turn those kind of things around. And that can seem so glib and so pie in the sky, but it is the only way. Apart from the fact that some of the paper airplanes that might not have been picked up, I just added to the litter. I got that part. But the idea was wake up, and that was all over the world. And I love the look on some of their faces when and it's that wake up, and that's spring to me. That's springtime where we wake up to a possibility for new life. To take a verb and then attach it to a problem and ask, what part of new life could I be there? What part of new life have I been kind of ignoring or what? And again, Franz Kafka says, can't take it all on, shouldn't take it all on, it's not yours, but the peace that we find. Babette is going to sing and take us back to springtime and the new life and the awe and wonder. And I'm hoping as we go out into our day and we see the signs of new life, that nature reminds us of how important it is to bring new life into the situations where the verb is needed. And the song is called Awe and Wonder.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.